Hello and welcome to this next Relab webinar. So today we've got Scott Mackenzie from the award-winning Greenhithe branch. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks,
yeah, it's great to have you. We're going to cover off the secrets on making clients and staff happy in the real estate game. So there'll be a bit on personal connections, building great teams. We'll even cover some tech stuff for real estate agents. And for those of you who haven't been on our webinars before, we love having questions, so just pop those in the chat as you go. We'll try and address them at the time, but if it doesn't make sense with the flow, then we'll just circle back to those for 10 minutes of questions at the end. So let's get started. Scott, I'd love to hear in your own words a bit about your personal journey into real estate.
Oh, thank you. So I grew up in a family of real estate. My dad was with Barfoot and Thompson 28 years. And I was fortunate enough when I started for me to have him as my branch manager for the first 18 months. So he started selling in Takapuna in the 80s, and then was a branch manager at Northcote and then Glenfield. And I hadn't seriously considered real estate growing up. It wasn't until I thought of a career change, and Mum said I'd be good at real estate, and that's when I started speaking. But Dad had always said you don't really want to go in too young, and you can't play cricket. And at that point I was still playing cricket, and I was like, okay, I'll never be a real estate agent. But then I realised that cricket was finishing up with the second child on the way, and I wasn't too young anymore. So I thought, actually, maybe I could give this a go. And he had confidence in me, and I thought, okay, we'll give this a go. And the rest is history. So while I was on my journey, I did 6 years of selling in the Glenfield branch, and I was selling where I grew up, which made it easier. In fact, I lived 2 streets from my parents' home, and my 3 kids go to the 3 schools I went to. And I love community, and I love local. And I also, just for people to get an idea of how I was operating my business when I was selling, I never really wanted to get into a situation where I lost a listing for any reason at all, especially if it was something that I could do better at. So I just made myself as good as I possibly could at every aspect of selling. And so that's kind of a little insight to my background and how I got into things. And then I became Greenhithe manager 6 years ago. So I've been in real estate only with Barfoots for 12 years.
That's amazing. There's so much heritage for you in that journey.
Yeah, there's a lot of us at Barfoots that have followed parents into real estate. It's great. It's part of the family culture we have.
Yeah. So I guess touching on community and having those strong ties into your suburb, what's your take on building relationships in real estate for those long-term wins?
Yeah, I feel like the longer you're in real estate, the bigger your network gets, and the more referral business and repeat business, and it's this big snowball effect. So I sort of treat every relationship as valuable, and that everyone that you can come across, especially in the community and through your schools and sports clubs and where you meet them, and you develop those relationships and friendships, and you never know when they're going to need you. And that's great synergies, or kind of one of the great things that sort of integrates real estate with the community is the fact that we can give back, and the investment in the community gives back to us. So it's this really sort of hand in glove relationship, which is just ideal if you're into that sort of thing.
What kind of examples do you have where you've built that trust and loyalty and made a really special connection with either a client or someone in your team in that space?
So building trust and loyalty in the Greenhithe branch has been one of the things we've done really well here. Interestingly, between me and the sales team, I position myself as being a support person for them, so that it drives a lot of how I run the business here in terms of being available to them and creating deeper relationships. So actually the very, very first moment that I meet them, it's often someone who wants to come into real estate and they're thinking about who they're going to work for and how it all works. And so I'll show them around the office and get excited about our environment here, and then we'll go for a coffee next door. And I actually say at that point, which kind of sets the relationship right from the start, and that is that while you think that I might be interviewing you for a job in our office, it's actually very, very much you interviewing me to decide if this is where you want to work, because we've only got them while they're here and they're contractors and they have a choice. So I spend most of my time building relationships that I hope will be enduring and that they'll stay through that loyalty. So then I go through a sort of a process with them at that point and say, I'm on profit share and I'm here to make money from the branch. And when you make money, I make money. So we're in this together. So just try and position things at that point right from the start. And then just always getting them thinking about that contractor status as well, and helping them to understand that their business is their business and they bring the business in. It's not for me to tell them how to do that. I'll show them 1,000 different ways to do it and support them where they need it. But the reality is it's their business and they bring it in, and I'll make money when they do that. And so they don't need to worry about how anybody else is running their business. And that just creates this amazing mutual respect and understanding of everybody else in the office.
Yeah, it sounds like you're definitely a people person, and that cultivates in terms of how you turn up for your team. So how do you, provide customized training for all the walks of life for the real estate agents that come in from new to the more experienced ones? Yeah,
that is a great question. I know we talked before this webinar about me possibly even sharing some of how I do it here, because I have tried different things as a manager where I've taken on 2 or 3 people at once and try and put them on this conveyor belt of training and say, hey, let's meet weekly, and this week we'll do this, and next week we'll do that. And you do get different walks of life. Like you say, everybody tends to come into real estate as a second career, and they reach a point in their life where they're like, oh, maybe I will give that a go. I always thought I'd like to try it. And then, you get someone who used to be a builder who knows everything about cladding and leaky homes and everything you like. And then you might get someone who came out of a bank or a broker and they know all about the finance side and the contract or different aspects. So it does have to be customized. And so when I became a manager, I thought, how do I kind of capture everything that I know? Because I used to geek out on everything as a salesperson. And I was like, got all this knowledge, how am I going to impart it on everybody and make them be the best they can be? And then I kind of realized that everyone is different and you can't train them all the same way, and they all can bring in business in different ways, and there's no right or wrong way. It's not about trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It's about trying to work with them. So do you want me to start sharing the tree?
Yeah, I really rate this tree.
Okay.
Scott has put a lot of thought into how he trains his team, so I'm excited for you to be able to share this with the participants today.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so just a bit of a background to this. I sat down with a coach and mentor a few years ago, a good friend, David Pelferman, who's been on these Relab webinars in the past, and we were whiteboarding this kind of word dump and trying to get all the stuff out of my mind about the industry, and he was adding bits here and I was adding bits there. And then all of a sudden, once we started putting some other bits to it, I realized that the best visual metaphor for all of this really is a tree. So I'll start sharing my screen and explain. I kind of sat on this photo of a whiteboard for about 3 years because I'm not an artist, and I felt like I couldn't really illustrate the tree very well. But finally, earlier this year, I outsourced and got it done. And I've been using it with the team. And even this morning, I was with Justin. I went over and grabbed a coffee and we were chatting. And I mentioned the tree and he goes, oh yeah, I need to look at that again. So it's just an amazing reference tool for the team to be able to think about where they're at and where they want to go. And I said to him, you can look at it 3 times a day. You don't have to look at it 3 times a year. Cool, so I'll just go full screen on that one. It's a presentation. And then share the screen. Okay, so the first one is the full,
I haven't seen it yet, Scott.
Oh yeah, it's coming up. So the first slide is actually the full tree, but don't get overwhelmed. We're going to dive into each segment. It's going to be about 6 or 8 slides and dive in here. So I might even just flip straight to the second one. We'll come back to the full tree later, but you can kind of see there's some roots. We've got a trunk, we've got branches, we've got leaves, we've got a sun, we've got some rain, and even just this week I added fertilizer. So this is something that is free to evolve. Even this morning I added one more word to it, and I think version number 2.0 2.1, but I'm going to actually redesign the tree completely and make it a different shape. I don't kind of like the way it bends over, but that's another thing. So the first part of the tree that we'll focus on here is the roots. And this is the part when I was talking with David about this that really set my mind to thinking that this is a tree. Because I believe, healthy roots are the foundation for not just our business, but our lives. So now just like to just state that I'm not an expert on any one of these fields, and I don't always practice all of these perfectly myself, but there'll be many people out there who do know a lot about this stuff, and they'll know the importance of it. So I believe that values and purpose and clarity, 3 really strong words that will help underpin your tree. And then within that, you've got different sections. And I do believe that all of these affect each other, and that you can be really good in one and some of the others might let you down. I mean, you can imagine a tree that might even have a taproot, which is very, very strong. Maybe you're a very spiritual person, but maybe you're not putting your goals together, or you're not sleeping well because you're stressed. Maybe you need to work on a relationship, all these types of things. So these are our roots. That's that part of the tree. So the next part, as we move up, and this was kind of how the whiteboard session really started. I kind of felt like at the very center of everybody's business is everybody they know. And that is where your real estate business comes from. And the more people you know, the bigger your business and the bigger the game that you're playing. So how do you capture all of that? And I believe a really strong, good CRM should be the trunk of your tree. And that within that, we have these kind of cogs that are turning, and you're following people up. And as they say, no, not yet, they keep going back into that cog that keeps spinning. And whether it's 3-month follow-ups or 3 weeks or whatever you're working on, kind of spins these leads off through follow-up. And then through follow-up, we get to a point where we're going to list the property. You might have done multiple inspections and viewed the property a few times. You've done your CMA, you've got the AML done. There's a huge amount of technical things that need to happen around signing the agency agreement, even just the sales side of winning the listing. So you get that done, and then you move to actually marketing the property, following up the buyers, and then eventually the auction or negotiating a sale. Now, every single aspect on the tree you could dive into and do multiple hours of training on. Just winning a listing, we have a course on that at Barfoot and Thompson, which is multiple hours. Understanding how to market a property is just, what do you put in your budget, and where are you advertising it, and who's your photographer? I mean, there's 1,000 things, right? Following up buyers, there's all sorts of scripts, but following up buyers is really important because it's an add value, and there's handling, and it's a really critical part of it all. So yeah, that's kind of is to sort of think of it as a linear stage process of getting the listing, doing the marketing, following the buyers up, and making the sale. Then I was kind of like, the sale kind of has this loop back to getting more listings. And I said, how does that work? And it kind of happened that the leaves can actually nourish the soil again. So it kind of can flow all back through in the tree environment. The next part of the tree, I've zoomed out here. So what we've got here is the branches. And I think if the CRM's the middle, then people will have different branches in their business, which are the leads. And I kind of feel like I've got most of the leads that people can get categorized into these different branches. So I always talk with people about the very first branch being their personal sphere. So when they come straight into real estate, it's who do you know? How many phone numbers have you got on your phone? How many email addresses have you got? How many relatives, or who do you know? And that's where you start prospecting, because they're the people most likely to use you. They already know you. Once you've got that personal sphere up and running, your CRM's building, and you're doing your database and your follow-up, you start to get the other branches coming in, where top left there, you've got referral. So that can only really start coming once you're talking to people in your personal sphere and your CRM's operating well. We'll skip brand-based attraction for a second. We'll come down communities, fairly obvious, I think. Get involved with people. Buyer inquiry comes once you've got listings, so we can pick up listings from listings. And then you've got this whole thing around websites, social funnels. So you've got things like Google retargeting, remarketing, Google Display Network, AdWords. You can run people through click programs, through funnels, and you can buy leads where people are doing that for you and that type of stuff. The last one down the bottom left there is, if I was to get back into selling, I'd be going around all the current listings and talking to people about whether I could help them buy something. You've got to be a little bit careful about how you prospect current listings. There's certain things you can do, certain things you can't do, but certainly expired listings, I'll be working those as well as private listings. So it's another branch, and some people don't have that branch of their business, and that's fine. That's up to them. So we'll talk about the different shapes of tree later. But ultimately, there's always going to be door knocking, and no one can ever argue that they don't have anything to do in real estate, because at the very, very last thing that has kind of that highest resistance with salespeople, they don't really want to door knock, but you can, and some people do it really well, and then actually make that branch a big part of their business from the start, because maybe they don't have a good personal sphere, so they actually just have to get out there and meet people.
What are your tips for people that are a little bit hesitant around door knocking? Like, how would you coach them through that?
I probably wouldn't suggest that they had to do it to start with. I didn't like it. I didn't do it. I was really lucky. I had a big personal sphere. Facebook was really becoming popular at the time, and then I worked really hard on brand-based attraction, which we'll come to in 2 seconds, just so that I could get people calling me, so I didn't have to do the door knocking part. But the reality is, if you don't have much of a personal sphere, and I think of an absolute legend that I worked with in the Glenfield office, Andrei Volkov, who didn't have a big personal sphere at all, but he would go out doing 8 hours door knocking a day. And I've seen other examples of it where people will be out there and they'll just be relentless, and they will actually build their business off it. But there's an enormous amount of resilience required to do that. So yeah, one of the big ones is, what if no one's home? I might be going at the wrong time. And then you just keep coming up with reasons why you won't do it. But yeah, the reality is it's just numbers. You just got to go, I'm going to do 50 today. I'm going to do 50 tomorrow. I'm going to do 3 hours today. I'm going to do an hour tomorrow, whatever it is. You just got to look at the numbers, and I'd probably suggest trying to track it, making it a game. Yeah. 40 no's might mean that 41st person is a yes. So yeah, that's my advice there. But tough, real tough for sure. So door knocking, what else? I think we covered most of these. So what we'll do is we come to the sun, and I think this is quite a cool analogy here, where you can build your brand, and the sun shines on the tree, and it's all encompassing, and it's who you are. And so the different rays of the sun are just some ideas around what that involves. So professional photography, I would get a nice photo of yourself, and I'll put my hand up and say, I need to redo my one, because it's a few years old now, and I think, if I'm going to give other people stick about theirs, I should probably update mine. But the ultimate in real estate is have people call you. And so if you are doing sponsorships, and I think of these as kind of like one to many. I think it's things like personal sphere and door knocking and referrals and all that. It's kind of more like one-to-one, whereas I think of the brand as one to many. So that can be your social media posts if you're posting on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it is. We've got a couple other ones like Little Red Book that I know the Chinese are particularly keen on, dropping flyers, putting a video blog on YouTube, all that type of stuff, holding events. We do like a lantern festival here, Greenhithe. So there's lots of things like that, just to get people calling you, and it's kind of like a who knows me. So ask yourself, who knows me, and I see people go into real estate who do an incredible, great sort of work on this, and then their business is just not taking off, because they also need the one-to-one conversations. I feel like if you sponsor a school fair and there's 1,000 people there, and you have everyone goes, oh wow, they sponsored the fair. When that person goes to sell, they'll think, they don't think that they're letting you down when they call someone else, because they don't know you. But if you've had a one-to-one conversation somewhere along the lines, I'll make sure you call me if you're going to sell, and they say yes, and then there's this kind of unconscious thought where they're like, I really should call that person because I said I would. Whereas if you go to a school fair and see their name up, there's no real need. It's no sort of unconscious contract there. So I like that side of things. So you've got backs of bus. There's ad shells. That's like that's what we call the bus shelters. So you can advertise on bus shelters. All that sort of stuff's really cool. Then I was just thinking about it earlier this year, out of the blue. I was like, someone mentioned sort of morality and ethics and integrity and all that, and I thought, well, we can wrap all this up into reputation. And I was like, that'd be great to show it on a tree. And I thought, you need to manage this the whole way through. It's 20 years to build and 5 minutes to destroy a reputation. And then I suddenly thought, oh wow, you can flood your tree. It can cause complete devastation and cause drought and things. So that's the rain. That's nice. That's really cool. So it just brings all that in there and gets people remembering that it's in there as well. So that was that one. And then my most recent addition, and you'll note I put red on here. there's this idea of a catalyst and a reaction is that it doesn't take part in the reaction, but it speeds it up. And I thought actually all of our IT systems and processes and all that sort of stuff work really nicely like that. And they're fertilizing the tree. They're making it grow better and faster and stronger and all the rest without really taking part in what the tree is. And that's, of course, your cloud-based software and apps that we've been running the last 5 to 10 years in the industry. Smartphones have changed things a lot. Group chats for communication, and obviously Relab just in the last few years with the amount of what's being added all the time and how good it is for salespeople. I just say you've got to have it. But again, you don't have to have all that stuff. You can still have your tree and you can do your real estate, but it's just how fast and how much and how big and that sort of thing. So what else did I have here? Oh, so there's the whole tree. So back to the whole tree again. I hope that helps. And I have started using it with the team and get good feedback from it. And it just really gave me clarity about where things are at. And it's free to use. Just use it, absolutely. I don't mind anybody copying me. I realized years ago that if people copy, they will only be copying what I'm doing now. I challenge them to keep up because I'm already thinking of, I just thought yesterday I heard a guy speak and he mentioned love, and I'm not a great user of the L word, but I could see it was important to him and his family and his culture. And he actually started his presentation with that, and it wasn't until later I thought, and then just this morning at breakfast, I thought maybe that could be the soil that assists all of those things in the roots. So it might be that you get another version of this in the future and it has lovely soil.
I love how visual it is.
Right.
And it's interesting you've called out the one-to-one versus one-to-many relationship.
Yeah.
I wonder do you have any advice on like text changing all the time, and you mentioned that CRM is really important, and then you've got your fertilizer or your tools at the bottom. How can real estate agents access new information and get upskilled to take advantage and accelerate their sales?
Yeah, it's true. So there's a couple of ways. So having a manager that leads with innovation and keeps abreast of the latest things is useful. But if you want to look at it personally, you can find things, right? So I digest a lot of YouTube content. So I've got my channels that I follow, and if my wife goes to bed early or she's not home quite often, I'll find myself flicking through my YouTube channel, and then depending on what I'm looking at, all the algorithm starts throwing other stuff up. So it's nothing for me to digest an hour or two of YouTube in an evening. And so for me, earlier this year, there's massive amounts of AI content that I've been digesting and getting upskilled with, just keeping abreast of where it's all heading. So I'd say, find YouTube. I think YouTube, it's up to you how you want to digest it. I also get a couple of newsletters into my inbox, which keep me up with certain trends. And it's got kind of a little bit of a tech focus, but it's got other current events and things in it as well. It's actually called Morning Brew. If you look up Morning Brew, sign up to their daily newsletter. I just find the format of it and how much they spend on each topic just seems to hit me just right for a morning, sort of see what's happening overnight in the world. And
is that specifically for real estate, or is it broader than that?
No, it's much broader than that. Yeah. And so that's how I stay up. And then I've got a couple of newsletters that come through 2 or 3 times a week on AI, just because it's such a fast-moving space. So I definitely love what AI is bringing to real estate. I did a webinar with David Pufferman actually on AI and how I'm using it in the business. So I think most people will be aware of ChatGPT now and the benefits of what that's creating in terms of longer form text. And just talking with one of my English second language salespeople yesterday, and he said that ChatGPT has had a massive impact on the emails that he's sending to his clients and buyers now. So that's really cool, really cool.
How do you train people to use ChatGPT or to start incorporating AI into real estate?
So back in sort of January, it was starting to blow up, and that's when I really came back from Christmas and thought I better check this out. So we just held a meeting in the office. Everyone brought their laptops, and I shared mine with the TV screen in the office, and we just played on it for an hour. And I just said, look, these are some of the prompts. Have a go. What did you? And they would sort of discover something and go, oh, this is really funny. Or hey, this is really good. And I changed this and this came out. And we just played on it. So it was a case of just bringing people together who wanted to know. Like, again, it doesn't worry me if people don't know how to use it or don't want to use it. Yeah, just booking the time in. And one of the big things we have in our office actually is collaboration and teamwork, which we did our values a year ago, and that rose to the top with respect and a few others that I thought was really cool that the team actually chose collaboration and teamwork as two of the strong values that they have here. So being able to talk and share ideas and work through things, especially in the tech space, is really cool. I just remembered, I do have one more slide, which kind of dovetails into what I just said. How does your tree look? So some people will be running a business that's grass, which is very shallow rooted and it doesn't have a CRM at all, and they'll just make a sale here and there, and that's fine, they're grass. Some people will be a cabbage tree, which, as you can imagine, maybe one source of business, not too many branches going on, but no one can come to me and say, oh, I'm not doing enough, I want to do more, and then we draw a picture of a cabbage tree and say, this might be part of the reason, right? So unless you want to grow another branch, your business might not really grow too much. But the ultimate, I think, for some people, and some people don't want to be a tiny mahuta, go to the forest, but it's phenomenal. And I looked it up, it's got 40 species of epiphytes growing on it. So there's actually the whole metaphor of the tree supporting other people. And you can actually look in this picture and you see ferns and other things growing beneath it, and it's all being nourished and everybody growing together. So I just love that kind of analogy that you can, and in fact, I was speaking to a woman yesterday who said, and even within a jungle, a really effective jungle has a lot of diversity. So that's something we embrace here as well. That we're not looking for one type of person to work in this branch, and we will understand that everybody's viewpoints and their backgrounds and who they are add to that richness of the culture in the office.
Yeah, that segues well into the next topic, but before I just wanted to let everyone know that we'll be wrapping up soon, so if you do have more questions, just pop them in the chat. So I don't know if many of you know, but Scott's branch actually won the top engagement score for Barfoot 2 years in a row, and it touches on that culture and collectiveness. How do you think you managed to achieve that?
When people ask that, I actually say, well, the result was based on surveys of the team. So they're probably the best people to ask. And some of them threatened to be on here and throw out some funny questions and hurl some abuse at me while we're doing this. But I've had a lot of self-reflection over the last year or two since this came out, and I do wonder about things like trust and loyalty and depth of relationships, and it kind of struck me that I am quite an open person, and I think even you mentioned, when Knight mentioned my name for this, he described me as a humble person. I'm actually working with someone now to see if I actually humble to a fault, but that's something else. Like you can be too far in one direction, and there can be problems with that too. So we're working on that. But I think for me to develop a strong relationship with someone, there's got to be a point, at some point in the relationship, where actually you make yourself vulnerable, and the other person says, "Oh wow, they just opened up to being judged," or they said something that made them look less than perfect, and other people might not have done that, but because they did that, I feel a little bit special that they trusted me with that vulnerability. And I think that once you're really open and you share things, I'm not saying you walk into the office and tell everyone your problems, but if someone does have a problem, you can say, "Hey, I've had that problem too," or we can work through this, and just trying to give a viewpoint. And I think that when you are vulnerable, you do create deeper relationships with people. So I try to be as open as possible and share and be transparent. And I think that does build some level of trust and loyalty. And I see another branch manager here, Saul. He says I take them out for lunch. I probably learned that from Saul, actually.
I love that.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, so we will wrap up soon. So I've just got 3 quick questions for you, Scott. What's your favourite sport to watch?
Oh, wow. I would watch any sport, but yeah, I do miss certain ones to prioritise others. I do love the All Blacks for sure, watching rugby, and then cricket would be very, very close. In fact,
I've made it hard asking for just your top.
yeah, I mean, last night I was watching the netball, and my daughter plays, and we do a lot with netball at Barfoot and Thompson, and I love it. And then I did flick over in the fourth quarter because we were getting beaten. I flicked over to the cricket, which was South Africa, Australia, and it was nice to see the Aussies get a thumping. Oops, did I say that?
Yeah. And what's your favourite way to relax?
Oh wow. After hearing John Kerwin speak many, many years ago, I realised I probably am an active relaxer. I probably do like to get out there. I really like team sport, like indoor cricket is social, and I like being around other people.
Yeah.
So anything that involves other people. So I've got a mate that I meet for a run. So that's relaxing for me, is getting out there and being with friends and probably doing something active-wise. Take the kids to the beach and get an ice cream, go for a walk.
Yeah.
Spend time with the kids for sure. That's very, very grounding. Yeah.
And final question, what advice would you have for your 20-year-old self?
Oh.
I know. I didn't prep you for this.
If I was 20 years old now, I'd think about real estate a lot younger, right? So I got in later because one of the reasons I said, Dad said you don't want to go in too young, but that's not true anymore. In fact, if you're good enough, you're old enough. So it doesn't. Yeah, there's not a barrier to getting into real estate anymore. So that would be one thing. 20. I met my wife when I was 21. So I'd say make sure you go wherever I was when I met her on that night. don't not do that. So no, that's it's a good question. I'll have to keep thinking about that.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you so much for sharing your material with us and everyone on the chat today.
That's all right. If anyone's got questions, reach out. I'm just here, Barfoot, so anytime.
Thanks, Scott, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, everybody.
Thank you.
See ya.